Page 23, adverbs. Okay, what's an adverb? We always have to start there. An adverb is a word that describes, wait for it, a verb, adjective, or other adverbs. They're often rendered or translated as ly. Look at these three English examples. Loquax, remember him, sings sweetly. Ooh, what does the adverb do? It's sort of modifying sings. It tells you how he sings, right? Adverbs often tell you how. Melissa sings more sweetly than Grumio, so more sweetly, both of those words together. That's an adverb. And Kogadubnus sings the most sweetly of all. Just go with it. He has hidden talents, right? All right, so those are examples of what adverbs look like in English. Now, let's take a look at this. Why are we looking at adjectives? Well, because when you think about it, adverbs in any language are actually formed from adjectives. So going all the way back to the Red Book, if you'll remember, there are three what are called degrees of adjectives, meaning three ways an adjective can be expressed. Positive, which is like the standard old dictionary definition of an adjective. Comparative, when you're comparing two things. And then superlative, when you're saying that, you're comparing more than two things, I guess, and saying that something is the greatest, the best, etc. So if we look at these adjectives really quickly, I think this will help us out. Lightus, of course, means happy. Lightior would be happier. Lightissimus, happiest. And then, of course, you have suavis, suavior, suavissimus, which would be sweet, sweeter, sweetest. Pulcher, pulchrior, pulcherimus would be beautiful, more beautiful, most beautiful. And then facilis, facilior, facillimus, easy, easier, easiest. Some things you might notice. Comparative adjectives all end in ior. And the superlatives either end in isimus, as in the first two, or erimus, or illimus. All right? So now that we've reviewed adjectives, let's take a look at adverbs. Guess what? There will be positive adverbs, comparative adverbs, and superlative adverbs. And if you know the adjective, then we can form the adverbs fairly easily. Hey, look at this. You've actually seen lots of adverbs and sentences so far. Here's some sentences from the Green Book from pretty recent stages. Look at this. The architect urged on the craftsman because he, meaning the craftsman, was fessus, he was tired, et lente laborabat, and he was working slowly. Now how about this one? Fur termas calte apropinquavit. The thief approached the baths cautiously. You're probably seeing a pattern here for certain adverbs. But then the pattern seems to be broken with this one here, diligenter. The architect praised the craftsman because he was skillful and he was working diligenter, carefully. Okay, so how do we form adverbs from adjectives? Let's start with positive adverbs. Well, for those adjectives which fall under the first and second declension, for example, ones that end in us, like lightus or tardus, and pulcher too as a first and second declension adjective, all you do is you chop off the base adjective ending, as in like this us here, and you add the letter e. So lightus would become lite if you wanted to say happy, happily rather. Tardus, meaning slow, if we want to turn that into a positive adverb, it just becomes tarde, slowly. Pulcher, beautiful, it becomes pulchre, beautifully. Pretty straightforward, so you just see the e. Now for those third declension adjectives, this is where it gets a little trickier, but then I'll just tell you a shortcut at the end, which I think will help. You chop off the base adjective ending, and then you add one of two endings. You add either iter, iter, or simply er, if the base already ends in nt. Now how do we find the base again for any noun or adjective? Well, you take a look at the genitive singular, and you chop off the genitive singular ending. So for this adjective, aldox, meaning bold, the genitive singular is aldacus. I chop off the is, and I'm left with aldoc. That's my base. And then I add iter, aldaciter, means boldly. Similarly with ferox, genitive is ferocus, chop off the is, I'm left with feroc. I add iter, ferociter, fiercely. Sapiens, sapientis. Look at this. I chop off the is and now sapient is my base. The base already ends in nt, so now I simply add the letters er, so it would be sapienter, wisely. Same with diligens. Chop off the is, diligent already ends in nt, you just add an er, diligenter. So long story short, for third declension adjectives, if you want to turn them into a positive adverb, they're just going to end in iter or er. Now, the comparative adverbs are really easy. All you do is you just add these three letters, ius, to the base, and that's it. So ferocious, more fiercely; fortius, more bravely; suavius, more sweetly; celerius, more quickly. Now, here's the important thing to note about comparative adverbs. I just translated all of those as more blankly, but there are other ways to translate the comparative which are totally acceptable, and here they are. You could say rather fiercely, too fiercely, quite fiercely, relatively fiercely. I know that sounds strange, but technically you are making a comparison when you say all of those. And sometimes reading a Latin sentence, it makes more sense to say rather or too or quite or relatively than it does to say more. Most times, though, more will do the trick just fine. Okay, or do the job just fine, I should say. Now, how are comparatives used in Latin? This is important. They can be used oftentimes with the word quam, which means than. When quam shows up, meaning than, the two things being compared are always going to be in the same case. For example, rubria diligentius quam wilbia laborat. Rubria works more carefully than wilbia. Check it out. Wilbia is nominative, just like rubria. Marcus Calerius quam Quintus currit. Marcus runs more quickly than Quintus. Marcus and Quintus, both in the nominative, both in the same case. Romani fortius quam Graeci pugnaverunt. The Romans fought more bravely than the Greeks. Graeci Romani, same case. Sometimes, though, the word quam will not be used when you're making a comparison, and the second thing being compared is going to be in the ablative case, and it's called the, wait for it, ablative of comparison. Example, Melissa suavius quento cantat. Melissa sings more sweetly than Quintus. Leo ferocius gladiatore pugnavit. The lion fought more fiercely than the gladiator. Oh, poor gladiator. Okay. Now, superlatives, for most of them, you just add isime. So it's isimus, for example, for adjectives. It just changes to an e there at the end. So like suavissime or fortissime, very sweetly, very bravely. Now, there are three different ways you can translate superlatives: very, most, or exceedingly, which, yeah, that's kind of odd, but you can do that. And of course, there are a few irregulars. So pulcherimus, it doubles up that R for the superlative adjective. To make it a superlative adverb, you just chop off the US and make it an E. Pulcherime. Same with celerimus becoming celerime and facilimus becoming facilime. All right. Now, there's also a special use of the superlative when it's used with the word quam. Quam plus a superlative adverb always means as blankly as possible. For example, loquax quam suavissime cantavit. Loquax sang as sweetly as possible. And of course, there's always some irregulars. Bonus, the adjective that means good. Well, here are the strange forms of the adverb. Bene, meaning well. Melius, better. Optime, the best or very well. Malus is an adjective meaning bad. Then you've got male, badly. Peius, worse. Pessime, the worst or very badly. Of course, as you know from reading your stories, these words show up quite a bit. Same with these irregulars. From magnus, the adjective meaning great, the adverbs are magnopere, greatly, magis, more or rather, and maxime, most or very greatly. From paulus, which means small or a little bit, we get paulum, meaning little, minus, meaning less, and minime, the least or very little. And finally, from multus, meaning much, adverbs are multum, meaning much, plus, meaning more, and plurimum, meaning most or very much. Here are some more examples. Furde senem facillime superaverunt. The thieves very easily overpowered the old man. Atleta celerius quam ceteri cucurit. The athlete ran, comparative, more quickly than the others. Canis dominum mortuum fideliter custodiet. O Cerberus. The dog guarded his dead master faithfully. With that iter, that's just a positive adverb. Medicus te melius astrologo sanare potest. The doctor is able to heal you better than the astrologer. Notice how there's no quam there. Ablative of comparison. And then milites, quam fortissime pugnate. Soldiers fight as bravely, strongly as possible. There it is. Adverbville something. Okay, that's all. Just remember, we are the champions, my friends, and we'll keep on fighting to the end.